Alright, in this section, we're going to create our UI script. We're going to start off creating a new script and attaching it to the main UI node. We're then going to add a couple functions for the page's navigation. We're then going to ensure all the UI nodes update correctly. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright, before we get started creating the UI script, we need to make sure the default start screen is active. Currently, the game over screen is the one that's active, but we don't want that. We want the start screen to be active. So let's go into that UI node, into canvas layer, simply make the game over screen invisible, and make the start screen visible. Now once we add that UI script, we will be able to navigate through each page. So let's go ahead, select the main node UI. Let's add a script with this button here. Keep the name as UI, but go into the folder. Now we're going to locate the scripts folder to make sure it's in there. Let's hit open and create. And there we go. The first thing we're going to do in our script is create the play game function. Now this function, all it's going to do is simply go ahead and turn off the start screen and turn on the choose screen. Now there's an easy way we can do this, simply by selecting inside of our start screen, locating the button play node, and then of course the actual button we have for it right over here. Then from here, go to the inspector and select node. Now we can connect a bunch of different signals that are attached to this button node, such as the pressed one. Let's go ahead and select the pressed one. Now we just have to connect it to the script we want to use. Now by default, it's going to send us to the background one, but we don't want that. We want to go ahead and connect it to the UI one. So we can either scroll on down here, or you can go to source and scroll up, and then simply select the UI node with the script. Let's connect that. And now you're going to see this function in here and also tell it is connected from the right. Now again, all we want to do in here is simply make the start screen invisible, but then turn on the choose screen. And again, there's a very simple way we can do that, simply by taking our start screen node right here and dragging and dropping it in right over here. Then from there, we're going to do a dot visible equals false. Now this dot visible is coming from something on the inspector. We are still selected to start screen, but we go back to inspector over here. And if you scroll on down all the way to this visibility section right here, you're going to see this visible. Now visible is always on by default, but since we are connecting with it from the script, like right here, setting it to false, it will go ahead then, make the visibility off. And of course, if we set this to true, then it will make this visibility on. So now we need to do the same thing with our other screen. So let's close that one up there. Let's take our choose screen. Make sure you add another enter inside the function. Drag and drop it in. Simply go ahead, do a dot visible, and equal this now to true. Let's save that real quick. And there we go. Now we can test this out real quick. Let's go to 2D view. Let's go ahead, start current scene. Go ahead, hit play. And now you can see the next screen is visible. Looks great. Let's close that up. Let's go back to the script view. All right, let's go ahead on to the next function. So now we have the function where we can select each ship. Now that's also a pretty easy function. We simply just have to go into the choose screen, locate the button for each ship, such as button 1, select the button, and do the same thing. Go to node on the right, select pressed, and simply connect it to that UI node. Now in here, we're going to set a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is actually set our global variable for our chosen ship. So capital G global, that will connect to that global script. Do a dot, and we're going to go to the chosen ship. And if you remember, the first ship is going to equal 1. Now again, how we are connecting to this is using that capital G global, which is pretty much just connecting to our global.gd right here, and of course grabbing that value, this one. We can set them, we can change them, and we can also initiate functions as well from the outside by simply doing a global dot and whatever command you want. Now, some other things we're going to need in here is simply making the other ships not visible. So let's go ahead, scroll on to ships, open up the ships node, and we have our ship 1, 2, and 3. So now we can go ahead, add an enter here, drag and drop ship 1, do a dot visible, and simply equal that one to true. Then we can set the other two to false. So let's go ahead, take ship 2, and then ship 3. Let's take that dot visible, paste it in below, and then just change each one of these equaling them to false. There we go. Let's save that change. Now let's go ahead and do the other buttons. So let's go ahead, close up the button ship 1. Let's go ahead, open up the button ship 2, find the button for it, go ahead to pressed, connect it to the UI script, hit connect, and then we can simply just copy this whole thing here, paste it in right over here. But we are going to have to change some things, such as the chosen ship no longer equals 1, we want it to equal 2. We also want to make the second one visible. Let's change this to true. And then, of course, we'll turn off the first one to false. Looks good. Save those changes. Let's do the final one. Let's go ahead, open up button ship 3, select button ship 3, go to pressed, connect it to the UI, scroll on up, connect. Then let's go ahead, copy all these values, paste them here. Simply change the chosen ship, equal it to 3. And then, of course, we want to make the second one false now, but the third one can be true. There we go. Let's save that real quick, and looking good. All right. Next up, we're going to go ahead and we are going to connect the next button, which is the ready button. So like ready to choose the ship and then jump in. That's going to be the button choose. So let's open up button choose. Let's select button choose, select pressed. Let's go ahead, connect it to the UI. There we go. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to scroll down. What we're going to do this time is we're going to set another variable in our global script. So global dot, and we're going to set game on equals true, because now we are basically starting the game. We're also going to go, of course, and turn off the current screen we're on, which is the choose ships. So we're going to go ahead, let me close these here, select choose chips, drag and drop it in there, do a dot visible, and equal that to false. Other thing we want to do though is of course turn on the in-game screen. So let's take that, drag and drop it, do a dot visible, and simply equal that to true. Nice. Let's go ahead, save that. Now there is one more thing we are going to do, because this will kind of solve some problems in the future. Eventually, in our choose screen, we are going to have each one of these ships shooting some kind of laser to showcase what they can do. But I noticed, even if we make it invisible, those lasers will still shoot. So the best thing to do is just remove it entirely once we choose the choose button. All right? So we can do that really easily. Let me turn back on the original screen by simply going to script. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, simply take that choose screen, drag and drop it into here, and then do something called a .queue free. Now this will remove it entirely from the set scene. Now you may worry that of course this will make it not be there next time we come back, but that won't be the case, because when we restart the game, we're going to reload everything in. So this is just a simple fix we can do to solve future problems. Now, next button we'll do is of course going to be in our in-game screen. That's going to be the mute button. So let's go ahead, open that up, locate the mute button. Let's go ahead, select the button node, select pressed, connect it to the UI screen, connect it. All right. Now this one's going to be a little different because we want to be able to mute and then also turn off the mute. Let me add some enters here so we can see it a little better in the center. So how we're going to do this is simply use an if statement and say if our global dot mute double equals false, then we'll go ahead and simply make our global dot mute equal true. So if it's not muted and we press the button, it will go ahead and mute it. Now, if you remember, we also have some images for that as well to showcase if it's muted or not, which is those labels. So let's take the label on, drag and drop it here. We're going to make the label on one equal true, of course, for this instance. So visible equals true. And then the other one will equal false. So let's go ahead, label off, drag and drop. We're going to go ahead again, dot visible. Go ahead, select it, equal false. Then what we want to do is the complete opposite. So let's enter backspace once, do an else, colon, and let's just take each value we have in here and we can switch the booleans. So let's go ahead, add those in there, make our mute now equal false, and then of course make this one false and the other one true this time. And there we go. That's going to be our mute button. All right. So now, of course, we need our next button, which is going to be the restart button. So once we die, we want to be able to basically play again. So let me remove these real quick. Let's go ahead, select out of here, select our game over screen, select the button menu, select pressed, connect it to that UI. Let's locate that, connect. All right. Now in here, what we're going to do is two simple things. First thing we're going to do is connect our global dot reset values, because if you remember, every time we reload the scene, it won't reset the global values. So we have to run this to do that for us. Now to reload the actual scene is really easy in Godot. All we have to do is do a get underscore tree. That'll kind of get like our main node, which is the main node right here. And then we do a dot reload current scene. And there we go. So once this button is pressed, it'll simply restart the whole game. All right. Awesome. All right. One more thing we are going to do in here is we're going to have one more function. Now this function is important to keep the game updating over time, such as the score, and also showcase the score, which we're going to use that function underscore process because we know this will continually run over time. Now, what do we want to do in this function? Now, like I said, we want to make sure, of course, the game is on. We want to make sure the score updates and everything else. So to do that, let's start off with an if statement. Say if dot, or actually we'll do if global dot game over. Let's say that equals true. If that is the case, then what we're going to do is simply turn off the in-game screen. So let's take that, do a dot visible, just like we've done before, make that one equal false, but we want to make the game over screen visible. So let's take game over screen, drag and drop it in, do a dot visible, simply equal that to true. And there we go. We're also going to go ahead and we are going to continually update the score. Now, we don't really have a spot for the score. So I say, let's go ahead and make one real quick. Super easy. Let's go to 2D view. I think the best way for the score, that's going to be in the in-game screen. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go to, let's say, the start screen. Let's duplicate our start label here, Control D. I'm going to take that, drag and drop it into the in-game screen. Let's close up the start screen. Let's make that one invisible. Turn on the in-game screen. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that label. Let's make that just a 0 for now. And then we can also change the name from label 2 to label score. There we go. Then, of course, we can position it a little better. I might just position this one up a bit to about there. Looks good. Then, back in the script, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and now update it based on the current score we have, which is super easy. All we got to do is take that label score we just made, Now this time we'll do a dot value, or better yet, we'll do a dot text, because we know we can connect to the text on the inspector of the label. So we're going to do dot text, and we're going to say equals, and we'll just do str, which stringifies a value, specifically an int, and we're going to stringify that global dot score. All right. If we didn't have the str in the parentheses, we would get an error, so make sure you have that there, because the text is a type of string, and we can only equal it to another type of string. Now this isn't the only score label we need to update. We also need to update the one inside of the game over screen. So let's go ahead inside of here. Let's take the label. Make sure we're taking the label of the screen itself here. We want to add the score here, which is kind of like the final score of the game. We can simply do that by going ahead and moving this over. Or better yet, if you don't want to make this the score, which is game over, I think a better way would be adding another text right below it. So let's go to 2D view. Let's turn off this one and this one on. Like I said, I think it would be cool if we have the score below it. So let's change the name of this one real quick from label to label game over. Then we'll simply go ahead, duplicate this, and we'll just say label score. Then, like I said, we'll just move it right below. Let's go like right there. Let's do capital S score, colon, and then like a 0 as a placeholder. Now I think this might look a little better smaller, so I might adjust that. I'm going to right click on the label settings, make unique, select it again. Let's go to the font, shrink it a bit. Let me just do something like 35. And then the outline, make it a little less as well. Let's do 15. Maybe even less than that, 13. Looks good. Now we can go ahead, back into the script. Let's go ahead, take that label score in the game over screen, drag and drop it in there. Again, do a dot text equal. Now instead of just labeling it the actual score, I think it would look better with that score in the colon. So we'll do double quotes, score, colon, space, make sure to add the space there. And then we can go ahead and do a plus str for the string, global dot score. And there we go. All right, let's clean this up a bit, remove what we have down here. Let's save what we got. Back to 2D view. Let's go ahead and I'm going to close this here, turn that off. Let's select the start screen, save what we got again, start current scene. We have the starting spot here. We have the different spaceships we can choose from. And then we have the choose here, which starts that. And then of course we have the button here. Now one thing I noticed is, oh, no, it does work. I want to make sure that we can change in between the X and the O to know whether or not we have the mute active, which we do. Looks great. Let's close that. Close this up here, close the UI, and there we go, we're looking good. Save what you got.